Welcome everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. We're going to keep this video hopefully relatively short and sweet for you today. Our goal today is to show you how to stain a door. So in all of our other videos that we have on our website, YouTube, Facebook pages, all that fun stuff, we do a lot of examples of how to stain things, and the number one complaint we get is, well, you're not doing a large surface, you're not doing a door. That's not really real world, so can you show me something that's more like what I'm going to encounter? So that's what we're doing here today. You're going to notice I have a ton of different application tools out in front of me. Not all of them are particularly useful, so some of them I have there just to show you what not to use. So we're going to do this. This is a 6-panel pine door here. This is our water-based wood stain in antique brown. This is just a stock product out of the can that I have here in the paint tray. I have not done anything special to it. This door has been prepped and sanded and is ready to go. So as I'm staining it, we'll talk more about what we're doing, and we're going to get started. First thing you're going to notice, foam brushes. I know everybody loves using them because they're cheap, they're easy to get hold of. I am not going to use a foam brush for this, hardly at all. If I do, it's going to be very, very little. They don't hold enough material to keep a nice wet surface, because if I use this brush, if I try and do this area here, we know water-based stain is going to dry a little bit more quickly than oil. Now we also know that we need to get enough material down so that it saturates the wood evenly. Well, I'm already wasting too much time with this foam brush, and I'm driving myself crazy. And I have to keep going back and forth and back and forth. Let's make life a lot easier. These are paint pad applicators. This one's obviously been used. There are several different brands of them out there. I'm going to set this up front so they can zoom in on it. It's called a handy painter. This one I have cut. The reason I've cut this is this one is a little bigger. It doesn't quite fit in this panel. Makes it a little awkward. I just went and I cut this on a circular saw, made it a little bit smaller. The beautiful thing is these hold a ton of material in the foam pad backing. So I can go on here. This product was already starting to get just a little bit dry on me. And that's going to be the number one key theme that you're going to hear me talk about over and over the next few minutes is if this stain is getting just a little bit dry on you, you're probably not using enough stain. Now, there can be some environmental factors that come into that as well. So we are staining here today. It's an enclosed environment. It is wintertime in Wisconsin. We are in our heated shop here, but it's about 60, 65 degrees in here. So I'm not in direct sunlight, which is a big, big part of it. So I'm getting enough stain on there to really saturate everything, get it into the corners. I've even got kind of a little extra there. You can see how much faster this pad applicator works than what a foam brush does. I don't have to keep on going back and forth and recharging this pad. I have plenty of stain in there, and it even has kind of a goofy corner in here. It's got a little bit of an angle to it so that I can get into that angle and leave lots of material behind without a problem. All right, so I've actually got a little bit of extra in there that I'm just going to soak up. Now, sometimes when people are staining doors, they'll do the panels first. You are welcome to do that if you want. In this particular case, I'm going to kind of try and work from end to end. And the reason for that is so that I'm going to try and keep a wet edge on everything. Now, another important little minor tip here, but it's going to make a whole world of difference. These are just terry cloths, cotton rags that you can buy at a hardware store. Nothing too special about them, but we see a lot of people that are using t-shirt rags because that happens to be what they have laying around. T-shirt rags are fine, but these are going to absorb a lot more material. And I'm just using nice even pressure here. I'm not pressing too hard. I'm letting the rag soak up all of the excess water here. I'm not trying to push down really hard and squeeze it all out. So I'm just real lightly wiping. Now you're going to notice I'm not getting in all of the corners here. There are some wet areas because those corners, especially on a 6-panel door, are a huge challenge. This is where another little easy tip comes in. This is a natural bristle brush. This is actually a deck brush. You want something that has a lot of bristles on it. Because what we can do, this is dry. This doesn't have any stain on it. And the fact that it's a natural brush means that it's going to absorb, and I can get into those corners And not only if I missed a little area in the corner, I can kind of press it in there, but I'm also taking out the excess while I'm at it. So this brush makes life so much easier when you're trying to remove stain from goofy corners like this. All right. Now with water-based stain, you can't sit there and lollygag, so to speak. You do have to kind of work on it. When you start on it, you need to be ready to go nonstop and keep going. So with an oil-based stain, sometimes you can kind of go, you can get a cup of coffee, you can come back, no big deal. Water-based stain, we're going to work a little bit more quickly. Now, it's a great advantage because if you're especially a contractor trying to get jobs done and you need to work more quickly, this is going to be the way to do it. The other big advantage with water-based stain is you're not going to have to worry about throwing rags away and having them catch on fire. This is completely non-flammable, so we can take the rags when we're done and throw them in the garbage. So again, I'm going to try and work a wet edge. Now, this area here where I kind of had some stain dry before, because it's still relatively fresh, I can go back and I can go over it, and it's going to re-wet itself, and I'm not going to end up with any kind of an overlap mark by the time I'm done. So again, you can see I'm kind of going back over these areas, making sure that any areas that are drying a little quicker than others are still getting nice, even stain application. But I'm not having to recharge this pad over and over again. It's got lots of material in it. So these little things, these are cheap. You can find them at paint and hardware stores. They're really easy to use. Again, we've got our nice absorbent terry rag here. I think on the box this said it was like a bar rag, so just to give you an idea of kind of what it's like. It's just a towel that has some of those little loops on it, but we're really absorbing a lot of material as we go. Now we've got these areas where the grain kind of crosses at the joints, so we're going to be careful in those areas to try and go with the grain when we're wiping. And then in those creases, we're going to work away from there. Now from that last little bit that I did, I got some excess stain back in those corners, so we're going to work that out in a second with the brush again. And again, if you have anything that's drying a little bit quick on you, what you can do is re-wet it by just putting a little bit more stain down here. All right. We're getting there. We're getting there. I've got some of these corners here that I need to pull some stain out of. And again, this big bristle brush makes life so much easier because it's just going to feather out all of that excess that might be there. And we don't want it to be a synthetic brush. A synthetic brush is not made to absorb water. A natural bristle brush is. So we can even use it on these flat areas and feather out some of the excess there. All right. We're just going to keep on rolling along here. We've got that area done. We'll set this here. Now as we move over, you're going to see this bottle of extender is next to me here. So if you are working in hot, dry environments, I even have a little bit of excess stain there, so we'll try and, I'm going to press down and try and discharge some of that so I can soak some of this back off of this area here. So if you're working in really hot, dry areas.
Bill, can you say what color stain and what type of wood?
Yeah, this is antique brown. The question is what kind of wood and what color stain we're working with. So this is antique brown water-based stain, just one of our stock water-based colors. It's just a really nice natural brown. And this door is just a pine door. So this is not anything fancy. We went to a big box store and bought this off the rack. This is not any kind of a special order, any kind of door. So this is exactly what you would find if you went and bought a pine door at any kind of a big box store.
Did you sand it first?
Yep, this is all prepped and sanded. So they say that they're sanded when you buy them. To a point that is true, but I went and I sanded this down to about 220. Somewhere in that 180 to 220 range is just fine. Okay. Now, notice I'm going to go back over this area that I actually dried because I had some overlap there. And again, I just want to keep this wet. That's how you keep from getting a whole bunch of overlap and wipe marks, is keep this stain wet. That's going to be the goal.
Somebody asked, when staining pine do you have to use a pre-stain?
Yeah, so you're going to see here as I'm staining this door, pre-stain is something that honestly we don't use a lot of on personal projects around here. You can use a pre-stain if you want it to be a little bit more uniform in color. The beauty of the water-based stain is a lot of times, especially on something like pine, because it absorbs more evenly than an oil-based stain does, you're going to get a lot more even color naturally with the water-based stain. So if you wanted to use a pre-stain conditioner with water-based stain, you certainly can. That's not going to offend me at all, but you're also going to get a much lighter color when you do that. So a little bit of give and take when you use a pre-stain. This would be a really good choice if you did want to use pre-stain conditioner. Pine is one of those woods that a lot of people use it on, and that's perfectly fine. But on this particular case, I'm not using pre-stain conditioner at all because I would like everybody to see just how nice this looks without having to use it.
Now, when do you stain the edges of the door?
Yeah, so the edges I'm going to try and get to right at the end here because those are pretty easy to get at. So for right now, I want to try and work on the front, and then I'll get the edge next. All right, and as this rag gets pretty saturated, as you can see, the beauty is I've got more of them sitting there. So if this kind of starts fighting you as far as trying to get some of that water off the surface, you can go and grab a new one. So this goes back to, this is kind of the point where if I was using a t-shirt rag, they get saturated so fast that I would be 3-4 rags in by now. You can see this one is still working pretty well. Now before I'm done with this door, I am going to use a second rag, just because you can see in these areas where I'm starting to wipe, it's kind of putting a little bit back there. So when I grab a new rag and start wiping, there's going to be a lot less streaking here now. I can go back, take off the excess. Yeah, now that's looking a lot better here. And you can see up here, I'm kind of trying to leave that wet edge. And you can see in these areas where I overlapped, it's really evening out. There's pretty even color there. And if you notice a spot, let's say right in here, there's a little bit of high and low color. I can even go back with just a little bit of stain, and I can kind of go right over and blend that together. Because again, this is still relatively wet. So if I wanted to go back in there and just real lightly wipe it and blend those areas together, as the stain dries, it's going to lose a little bit of its color, and that's going to come back to life then when you put a top coat on it. So if you look back and you see a dry area that's light and you're unhappy with it, compared to the wet, a lot of times that's just the color change as it dries. So if this brush gets saturated, what you can do is discharge it on your dry towel. And we're going to get right back into these contours and recesses. And this even if you're using an oil-based stain, these brushes are absolutely fantastic. And again, this brush is not anything overly fancy. You're going to be able to find it at any hardware store, any paint store. And this would be what they say is a deck staining brush. And in this case, obviously I'm using it more to remove stain than to apply it. And again, if you feel like it's getting a little wet, you've got your dry rag here, and you can discharge it. You can use it to blend in any areas. Now, if you're looking at this pine door and thinking to yourself, you know, it's a little blotchy, I don't necessarily like that. That is where the pre-stain conditioner comes in, and that is going to lighten the color as well. And if you use a pre-stain conditioner and you're still not happy with it, unfortunately when you're staining wood, this is kind of the beauty of stain, is you get the highs and the lows, you get all of the contrast in color. This is what I grew up with in my house, are pine doors like this. So I think this is beautiful. If you want something more uniform, that's when you start to look at paint instead of stains. So, or there are some other options that contractors will use, maybe using a toner instead of doing a stain like this. But we're looking pretty nice here. So again, I've got this area right here And you can see this stain is dried. If I try and wipe it off, you can see it kind of looks bad. There's a lot of streaks right in here. So I can get right back on there, and I can get some stain back on. I'm going to re-wet that area. And I'm just going to let that soak in for a couple of minutes here. And by the time I come back, and you can see even right in here, where I've got an area where I had a lot of stain sitting there. So I'm going to re-wet it and let it start to blend itself out. And then I'll go back and wipe it in a second. So again, having the right tools is key. If you're trying to do this with a foam brush and you're having to go back and forth and dip in the tray, you're going to make your life absolutely miserable. These little foam back pads, I mean, they're $1 or $2 a piece at a paint store, hardware store. And you can see how much easier they're making my life. And it's not a big deal if you need to alter it, cut it, anything like that. Do I have any drips going down the front there?
No, you're
looking good so far? So normally if I'm not doing a video, I'm going to be able to walk around the door and just make sure I don't have anything too crazy running down the front or anything like that. Now for the video, we're trying to give you a good look, so I'm working from one side. You can see even in these areas in the corners, this thing works really well at getting product in there. I've got these spots where we had some blotching a second ago from the stain drying, especially right here, it was real heavy. I'm just making sure we're evening everything out here. All right. And you can see how even that turned out right in there. So this was looking pretty bad a second ago, and a lot of people at that point would really start to get nervous. Again, the idea here is, if you have any areas that you need to blend, just take a little stain, get them wet again, and then just real lightly wipe. There's no need to press down very hard. Let the rag do the work and soak up all the excess stain and water that's there. All right. So using the right tools is key. Now, this pad obviously is my favorite. If you wanted to use something a little bit different, you can. So we got this drying right in here. But that's no big deal. We're just going to get a little bit more stain on there. It's not a problem. We make more stain. There's plenty of it to go around. So we're just going to let that sit there while it is kind of re-wetting itself in. I'm going to brush out of the corners here. So this pad is really what I like using, these little painter pads. Now, if you want to use a different applicator, again, that's certainly doable, but it has to be the right one. It has to be something that you can work quickly with. So you'll see I have a whole bunch of other applicators. There's all kinds of rollers that are options. These little velour rollers are really nice for paint, not really for stain, so you really don't want to use that. Foam rollers are great. They hold a good amount of material. Or this really thick, I think it's like a 3/4 inch roller, is going to work really nice and hold a lot of material. And you could even roll the stain on if you wanted to do that. That would certainly work. Just something to hold enough material. I know some people will even use a rag and put it on. That's not our favorite way of doing it, but it can work. At that point, you're really using the rag like a mop to make sure you're getting enough product on there and working quickly. But I find when I'm trying to do that, especially on a surface like this, you end up dripping, and then the edges of the rag kind of drag and drip all over the place, and it makes a bigger mess than what it's worth. So these paint pad applicators are really our go-to around general finishes to give you a nice surface.
We've got a quick question. How can you get that dark look after using a pre-stain?
After using a pre-stain? So yeah, if I used a pre-stain on this, it would definitely be lighter, no question about it. So if I wanted it to be darker after I use a pre-stain, there would be, it'd be easy enough just to do a second coat of stain. So let that first coat dry, and then after that, you could put a second coat on there and get roughly to the same color as you would if you just did one coat without a pre-stain conditioner. So So we're looking pretty darn good here. I mean, that's I don't know how long we've taken here, about 10 minutes to do this door. But if you're a contractor doing this and you wanted to spray the door and wipe it, you could certainly do that. If you have 2 people working, 1 person applying, 1 person wiping, that can certainly work as well. So a lot of different things and different ways that we can do this. These terry rags are huge. They're really make life easy. And again, these paint pad applicators, they make life easy as well. So easy tips and tricks.
What kind of brush bristles that were the dry brushing you were doing?
So the dry brushing, this is just a natural hair deck brush, and it's really key that it's a natural, not a synthetic brush. Synthetic brushes are made for water-based paint so that it puts all that material back down on the wood. In this case, we want to actually absorb that water, so that's where a natural bristle is going to absorb that water. And you can see how much surface area we have. I've got a couple of chip brushes over here. These 2-inch chip brushes for this job, we don't need them. Throw them away. They're useless. This is a 4-inch chip brush. You have a chance, but look at the difference in the amount of bristles there. And you can imagine this chip brush is going to get so saturated so fast. This brush is worth its weight in gold, these deck brushes. So we don't really use the chip brushes much at all around here. This is a synthetic brush. You notice I didn't really use that. If I wanted to apply the stain with a synthetic brush in these areas, I could, but again, you're not going to have as much material as these pad applicators. So keep it simple. Have these pad applicators, have really good rags, have a good brush, and you can do an entire door like this. So plus, I mean, these little chip brushes are shedding all over the place. This thing does not do that. So you can see I've got really messy hands now. I'm going to be able to wash this off with soap and water. I don't need mineral spirits. Using gloves is not a bad idea either. I always forget them, and because it's so easy to clean up, I'm not too concerned about it. So we certainly appreciate you tuning in today. If you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us, our Facebook page. We have a ton of FAQs, videos, and articles on our website. We're looking forward to doing the next video. Maybe we'll even finish this up with the top coat and show you how to do that. But appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.